Well, I know you've been here a long time, and so we'll be to the point. I'm very pleased to announce that we have reached a bipartisan agreement with the DFL leadership to bring this legislative session to a productive and good conclusion for the people of Minnesota. That negotiation took place and was finished just a little while ago. We want to make sure that the bill is properly prepared and people have a chance to review it and read it. So with that in mind, we call the special session to begin at 12:01. Legislative bodies will adjourn at midnight. We'll call the special session begin at 12:01 a.m. so that they can have the remainder of this morning to finish this process and get the bills done. But more importantly than all of that, we were able to resolve a $3 billion budget deficit without raising taxes. That's really important because one of the main issues facing the state of Minnesota are doing those things that will encourage job growth, not discourage it. Minnesota is already an overly taxed state, and by being able to keep a lid on taxes, that will make our job environment and provide more economic opportunity for the people of Minnesota. We also, in terms of the bill, feel very good about the negotiated settlement, and we'll go through the details of that with you. But some of the highlights include the surcharges were able to be removed from the bill. We also were able to have an opt-in arrangement as it relates to early enrollment in MA, so it doesn't happen unless either me as the current governor or the next governor affirmatively choose to opt in. And so governors will have an opportunity to decide whether to opt in or not, which is what we were seeking in terms of a compromise with respect to that provision. The GAMC issue will remain. The reforms that were so meaningful and hard to reach a few months ago have now been operating for 4 of the hospitals in Minnesota, but there were some improvements needed to that, and so we were able to achieve some improvements to that arrangement as it relates to timing and equity for all the hospitals across the state of Minnesota, and some more money will be put into that program, an additional amount of money as well, and there are other highlights down the road. But we have negotiated hard in good faith. We've reached a very good outcome, I think, for the people of Minnesota to bring the session to an end, resolving the budget deficit, bringing the budget into balance, not raising taxes, and making sure that we preserve the healthcare reforms and the nation-leading healthcare approach at a state level that Minnesota is so proud of and has pioneered. I'd like to turn it over to David and Kurt for their comments.
Well, just briefly, and we've got the bill to read yet, but I would offer that I want to thank the Speaker and the Majority Leader for coming together and working with us. I think that's what compromise is all about. That's, in fact, what moving Minnesota is all about. And I think this bill will once again move our state forward. We're in difficult times, there's no question about it, but I think through these difficult times, this group of people have come together and fashioned a bill that's going to allow us to go home, and I think we all look forward to that.
One of the things we've talked about all session long is not doing any harm to the Minnesota businesses that are trying to recover and Minnesota families who are struggling with tough economic times. That's a hard lift to do when you're $3 billion in deficit. I think working with Speaker Kelleher and working with Senator Poggemiller, and especially with Governor Pawlenty, we've been able to do that. As Dave said, we're going to read the bill. We make sure to get through that, process that, make sure our members are able to have a chance before we leave, read it, and then vote on it. But this is probably one of the toughest economic times we'll ever see, and to be able to come to a conclusion in a timely manner, maybe a couple extra minutes of overtime, but this is a conclusion that most Minnesotans will not only expect from us, but will be at the end of the day what we were looking for. And that's just, again, do no harm to the families, do no harm to the businesses, and help get our economy back on its footing. If
there are any questions, we'll be happy to take it quickly. We'll be coming back out later, too, at the end of all this, too, if you want to ask more questions.
Okay, is your successor making the state budget in jeopardy by enrolling in MA?
The language in the bill speaks, Bill, if a governor, either me or a subsequent governor, is going to exercise that option and choose to opt in, they have to consider a variety of factors, including the finances, and of course, they would be required to have the ability to pay for it as well, but that would be something the future governor would have to resolve.
So you've got a pretty good confidence factor that will protect the integrity of the budget.
Well, again, that will have to be decided in the context of all the deliberations next year, and work with the legislature reductions in the bill do substantially follow the allotments, yes.
So, Governor, it was my understanding that they were going to just make some corrections and then see that Congress would go with surcharges and expansions and corrections to public safety requested. So now this is going to be an overall budget bill. Are there any other major changes? What was in that budget bill?
Yeah, sorry, Pat. The question from Tom was, there's some rumor or indication that they might process some correction bill and try to fix the bill that was passed. And we thought it was important, given the hour, to make sure we have one total, complete, comprehensive package that everybody can look at, see how it ties together, and have a chance to do it rather than trying to work off of two bills and process it late. And plus, in that bill that they passed the other day, they put that up first. There's a lot of problematic provisions in it that people didn't want to vote for, I didn't want to sign. So getting a fresh start on the bill, getting a comprehensive package was the better way to go.
Is there an agreement that other issues won't come up during the special session?
The intent of the parties, the leadership, and everybody who's at the negotiating table, this would be the only agenda item. This would be the focus of the special session, and the idea would be to end it by breakfast. Is there any definite time? Under this bill, it gets paid back entirely in the next biennium.
Governor, your thoughts?
The bill requires it to be paid back entirely in the next biennium.
Governor, your thoughts walking away from the final negotiations for you as governor?
I'm glad it is the final one. It's it's always, each one's different. I've been this for 10 years as a legislator, and 4 years as majority leader, now 8 years as governor, and 3 different Senate majority leaders, and at least 2 different speakers. And so each one's different, each year is different, but it's an interesting process. It seems like it always has to come down to the last minute for some reason, unfortunately, but I find it interesting, and the process is sometimes a little bumpy, but the result is usually good, and that's the case this year. This is a good result for the people of Minnesota. It's a bipartisan result. Reflects the priorities that I think will serve the state well.
There's no circumstances under which you would opt into MA, would you, Governor?
Is that Eric back down? Yes. Eric, the language of this bill will require me to consider that in the context of some findings or some facts, but again, it doesn't take effect unless the governor affirmatively chooses to opt in via an executive order. I think you know how I feel about the program.
So you choose not to?
Right. I'm not going to pre-announce that, Pat, because the language requires some deliberation around some factors, so I want to deliberate. But as I can tell you that I'm not a fan of the program.
Is there a mechanism for moving back K-12 shifts
during this biennium or the next one?
Oh, did you say the next one?
Yeah, the shift occurs this biennium, and then the payback under this bill is in the next biennium in total, in full.
Is there any mechanism for being back in the next one?
Well, that'll be decided by the next governor, the next legislature. Everybody has to balance the budget each 2 years, as we have for the last 8 years, and so the next crew will have to balance the next budget as well.
The shift is how much? Did that go up as well?
It was 1.7 billion, and now it's 70-30. What's the increment change on the shift? I just picked up a couple hundred.
Did you see a negotiating agreement essentially with the state that survived and you had any different solutions on your own in the absence of a negotiation?
Well, I think the state would have been in a very precarious situation, right? But it would have been uncharted territory. They would have been in a position where the state had never been before. There would have been lots of unclear issues around either executive authority, the ability to shut off appropriations, further court orders, further litigation. So there would be a lot of uncertainty in that path, and it's hard to predict how that all will come out.
Governor, on that short special session, is there a political price that's going to be paid here?
For a short special session?
Yeah, for even
I wouldn't think so. I mean, said by the time people wake up and have breakfast too much, it'll be over.
Governor, how about the accusation though that federal politics played into this? Is this what's best for the state, or is this what's best for?
I know there are allegations of gubernatorial politics, legislative politics, other politics, but if you look at the result, I think it reflects the long-standing priorities and principles of the